already so pleasant so far. So I'm kind of looking for the real conversation. Thank
I'm
you for
so looking
inviting me,
forward.
Stian.
How are you this morning, Irina? It's been a massive snow in Sofia.
Oh yeah, it's the first snow, and each time in December, I think the snow is surprising us. So the chaos in the city is actually massive. I finally managed to get to be here with you, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I'm happy you actually made it on time. And to those of you who are tuning in this morning, welcome to Productivity Mastery, the podcast that I have chats with some exceptional people, some of them high achievers, some of them making amazing positive impact, like my guest this morning, but all of them really, really hard driven, good people, which I'm very excited about. And this morning, I'm having with me a massive positive impact maker from the region of so called New Europe, Irina Obushtarova, who's the co founder and CEO of the Recursive. And I can't wait to have a conversation with her. Irina, how are you this morning? And what's one good thing that happened to you this morning?
Well, I'm actually very happy about the snow. I mean, if I don't have to travel in the city, it's a beautiful, beautiful view out of my window. So this is, one thing that is positive. I think every day we can find something that we can be optimistic about, and we can be also grateful about.
I love it and definitely agree on that. Could you maybe share a little bit about your story, your background for the audience to get to know about who you are? Where do you come from? What was your
Where should
journey?
I start? Oh, okay. Well, at this point, I'm 34 years old. So actually, the story is not that short. I'm going to try to keep it still, maybe interesting for everyone else. I was born in Plovdiv, born and raised there. Shortly after school, I moved to Vienna, where I studied, and I spent like 11 years of my life. This is where I also, got in touch with the media sector. Later on, I switched to digital marketing and IT and, the startup world. Actually, when I was 27, I was thinking I need to do something grandiose. Need to do something totally different now. And I decided that I'm going to found a startup. Back then, it was the startup hype already beginning in our parts of the world, and it wasn't that successful, I must admit. We did a lot of mistakes, and it was more like a lifestyle business for a while. But I've learned so much, and I kind of got inspired from this startup vibe. I started visiting accelerator programs. I was part of I think it was called, I don't know, some kind of lean startup machine event where I got in touch with the agile methodology and how do you actually experiment when you're launching a product and a platform. And this kind of, stayed with me for a while. And I stayed in Vienna also after my failure with the startup for a couple of years. And I was in the IT sector back then doing digital marketing. And then at some point I thought, I'm getting bored. I need to do something different. I need to challenge myself again. And I moved back to Sofia like 3 years ago. And when I was, in Sofia after so long, I was feeling like a foreigner again. So I had to integrate again in my home country, which was kind of weird. But I had this idea in my head that I would like to contribute to society in a way, that I would like to have a positive impact on the economics and also on young people who, just like me, decided, despite of all difficulties and all challenges, to run their business from Sofia, to found their startup here. And somehow my worlds came together where I got this opportunity to establish a media brand, a media outlet here in Sofia, which was focused on startups. It was, everything coming together. Um, and this is how it actually all started, also with the Recursive. At first, we were part of an Austrian organization, which was called Trending Topics. We were the first newsroom that they established outside of Vienna. I was doing that with friends of mine that I've been knowing for many, many years before. And we were working together for a couple of years. Then at some point we had like a different ideas when it came to strategy, and we decided that we need to have like local food here for a media like that, because media per se is very local. And we relaunched the whole project with a new brand, with the support of the local community this year in February. So this is how it actually came to the Recursive. And this is my story in short.
I love it. Irina, just a minor note, when you're moving, your camera is doing a little bit like this. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's the that's
I'm
the
gonna
natural.
try to keep it fixed, yeah. And
Fantastic.
maybe not move.
Tell me about the recursive. You said you started in February, and by the way, I'm just impressed. We're talking about productivity, right? Productivity mastery, and I'm impressed of the amount of quality content that you guys are producing. But I want to start with the mission. Why did you
Okay.
decide to start the recursive? What was the bigger picture? What do you want to achieve with this? Like, if you look 5, 10 years in the future, what was the inspiration to start on this journey?
Mm, Let me go a bit in time when I was still living in Vienna, and I was hearing about some, positive news coming from Bulgaria, and I wanted to share that with my network, which most of it was not speaking Bulgarian at this point. Um, and it was kind of impossible because most of the news were in Bulgarian. And everything that the community or my network knew about Bulgaria was kind of negative. It was always kind of flavored with corruption and scandals and the political instability. And somehow this other face of the country, of my home country, wasn't visible for this broader network. Over time, I got to meet so many young entrepreneurs who were starting their business here, who were super street smart, very motivated. And I just wanted, somehow to share their story with the world, because I think this is like fair reporting in a way. And this is how it actually all started with the media outlet here, and also with the Recursive. And that was the main mission in the beginning. We wanted to create visibility for these innovators which are here, on an international level, and visibility they actually deserve. This is how I would put it, and this is what's driving us, the whole team at the Recursive. It's not just me. So when you speak about productivity, first of all, I'm very honored that I'm, allowed now to speak in this context, because I've never seen myself as being, super productive. And I think most of the kudos should go here to my teammates, who am, doing the whole thing together, because they're the ones who are producing all this content, and who are standing behind this mission for so long, and who have this grit, to do that on such a, how to put it, like at this speed that we've been doing it so far.
Yeah, thank you, Irina, for sharing. And I just want to remind everybody to go and check out the recursive.com. I'm a avid reader of their articles and following the podcast. They have a bunch of new projects going on. And Irina, you mentioned your team. We talk about purpose, but I'm curious, how do you create such an engaged and motivated team? Well, from your experience, what are some of the recipes and secret ingredients to keep people so excited, motivated, productive?
Well, first of all, I would like, this time to say thank you for being such a huge fan of the Recursive. I see all your, likes and all your shares on social media, and I never got the chance, to say thank you for, your support. Um, how do you create such a team? I'm not sure that I've created them. I think me and my co-founder, we just communicated what we want to achieve out there. We had these conversations with the people, and I would say that most of them simply identified with what we want to achieve, because I guess we were hitting a nerve. I guess, these challenges that we're experiencing in the startup ecosystem in Bulgaria and now on a regional level are at the heart of other people as well. And for us, I would say that it was mostly a question of selection and, being authentic and saying what we want to achieve.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with the piece about not speaking so much about the success stories. I had many conversations with my co-author Cristobal Alonso, he's Spanish, but he's spending a lot of time in a region that we like to call New Europe. I think in
I love
your
I love the term, by the way. I love it.
yeah, let's make New Europe famous all around the world. But the thing is, there were some of these countries, right, like Estonia, for example, where early on, maybe 15, 20 years ago, they had this few successes. They built these great companies, a few unicorns, and based on that, the community was built. Some years before it was built in some of the other countries in the same region or similar region. And I think that was also one of the main parts of why Estonia is now at the forefront of innovation and startups and so on, is that, I mean, one thing is the ecosystem, but the other thing is the belief,
Mm.
right? Like if you how do you build this belief and have the role models that I can actually do it. I don't need to look at Mark Zuckerberg in Silicon Valley. I cannot relate to this guy, right? I'm a guy from Bulgaria, from Serbia, from Romania. What about me? And this is
Ah,
what I want to give you big praise for, the fact that you guys are actually putting these stories on the spotlight and making all of us to believe that actually success is possible by sharing the success stories from the guy next door as opposed to the Jeff Bezos of the world, right?
You're very right here. I think founders in our part of the world, and here I would say Southeast Europe, because I don't have much observation about Estonia. I mean, I've been reading, of course, a lot of literature and articles of how the ecosystem started there and about their success stories now. But I would say that I know mostly about Southeast Europe. And even Southeast Europe is developing at a different pace. So when we speak about Bulgaria, I think the whole thing started already, I don't know, like 8-9 years ago, when the first VC funds were established, back then backed from the EU. And this created this kind of new type of community, new type of innovators who were optimistic and who were trying to find new disruptive models and change the world. And a lot of them didn't succeed, but the spillover effect of this whole upsurge was massive. So they continued working on maybe even different projects, or working for product companies somewhere else, maybe even as employees. But I would say that this is how it actually all started. And we see that happening now also in the other neighboring countries, in Romania, and also, I think, quite soon in Serbia, and then also in Macedonia. And I remember when I was talking to people from Bulgaria, let's say like 5-6 years ago, I was having this feeling that maybe the mood was a bit more negative. And this kind of changed over the past years. I'm not quite sure that it was because of us, but we were definitely playing a part. In the beginning, everyone was like, media about startups, why would you do that? There are no startups in Bulgaria. And then we started, researching, and we started, finding them. And they also started finding us and sharing their stories. And there was nothing like media which is reporting about startups before that. Only, like the major successes, maybe, but that was it. So we were having no competition. And when we started digging, then all these beautiful stories came up, and something happened which I didn't expect. So I studied media in Austria, and in the studies, you find out about this negativism trend in media, where journalists sometimes tend to create scandals because they want to have, these great stories which are polarizing. And we see that happening now, especially with this boost that social media is actually giving us all. So what was happening in Bulgaria was actually exactly the opposite. One of the success factors for us was the fact that we were reporting about positive news. So I think people were so at some point saturated with negativism and scandals and news about corruption that they were hungry for this positive news, and we were kind of giving them. Although we tried to be objective, most of the stories are about young people who are achieving stuff, and this created like a whole new movement, and I would say also a mindset. And
Would you
there
maybe
is also something else, but that I wanted to mention. Then we also saw established media, traditional media, also picking some of our stories. So it was kind of like a snowball effect.
And thank you so much for being really beacon for sharing positive stories. I definitely agree. Most of the news, I don't watch TV news. I sometimes click on these news web pages, but it's 98% very negative, and that's why I'm very happy that there's medias like the Recursive, that we can actually go and get inspired, learn something, learn some insights, learn from the people actually that are building stuff, from experience. So that's amazing. And I wanted to ask you. Um, my thought went away.
No,
For
no worries. I
Yeah.
can joke and joke if you want to.
No, I have a bunch of different questions. I wanted to ask you something specific. Oh yeah, there you go. It's back. It's back. Um, I
Shoot
just
me.
wonder. What are the kind of formats? Because you've been in this business now for a number of years, and in many ways, everybody who's building a company in 2021 is to some extent also a media business, right? You got to produce content. You gotta be out there. And I wonder, what are the formats that you guys are using, and do you see some of the type of formats in terms of interviews, covering stories, podcast, videos? Which of the formats do you would say are most effective in terms of engagement and people
Mhm.
really want to consume them?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. I would say in our case, we're striving to have a mix of them. Um, yes, today everyone is media. Maybe something which makes us different from a blog of a product company is that we try to do our job with a certain ethos and objectivity, and maybe also something on the back of my mind where we of our mind where we are trying to educate audiences and share with them also something that maybe is not that popular. So we're not striving for clicks, I would say here, which is it is challenging at times. The stories which get most of the clicks are, of course, like the big news. So one of them would actually, I would share, that happened recently was the Payhawk B series investment. So this was like a major success for the whole ecosystem. And it's been read and reshared again and again and again and again. I've been talking to the co-founder, and he was like, "Oh, I got your story, like you broke the internet, guys." And it was such a nice compliment. Then we have another story, which is the Dronamics IPO. Everyone is actually so excited about. So these are the stuff that get like a lot of traction. On further are interesting personalities, of course, like prominent personalities, and I remember that back then in the beginning, we were mostly covering the business development of a company. We would share what kind of product they have, what they would like, to spend their investment on, and so on and so forth. But after speaking to readers, like in personal conversations, a lot of them said, "Well, I would like to know, their personal story. I would like to know how they actually started." And this is something that we extended on during the Recursive podcast. We started tapping into the background stories of those success, beacons in the ecosystem, because we wanted to make them relatable to anyone in the audience, to make them understand that it's a question of mindset and not so much family or school or connections that you might have. Of course, these things are important, but they also follow a certain mindset pattern. So we speak a lot in the recursive podcast, especially. We speak a lot about growth mindset. We speak about values that determine your leadership style, philosophies, even life hacks. How do you hack your everyday life, and what kind of sport do you do, and so on and so forth, to show the personal side of the business success story.
Which is becoming more and more important for us to emphasize, because at the end of the day, when you're building a business, you're still a human, right? Like
Exactly.
you might read the facts of this company did this funding, and that's how we raise, and that's, but these are the technical, very important things. But you also need to master the mental game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
So
I think this is what's actually in the core of everything. The more I read about success, the more I understand that of you know a lot of it is related to the mindset, to the mind game, as you actually call it. Then we have also chance and luck in a way, and it's not that much all the subjective things that we believe that would actually affect us. This is my becoming more and more my personal belief, that if you want to achieve something and if you have the right mindset, you can actually do it.
and talking about this topic, you are an entrepreneur yourself, and I wonder, was there a moment in your life that was like a pivotal moment for you to say, I need to invest in my personal development? It's time for me to grow this side of myself.
Hmm. A pivotal moment, I wouldn't say. So I grew up in a family where knowledge and personal development is actually a value, a very important value. So in a way, I would say that I'm made for self-improvement. That's the only thing that kind of makes my life interesting. Otherwise we would be all bored. um, I worked, for instance, for a bigger company, more like a corporation, for a couple of years, and I know how it is, to get bored. And the moment when I stop learning, um, I feel like I'm missing out on my life. So I wouldn't say that there has been like a pivotal moment in that. There are pivotal moments where I started, to understand as an entrepreneur that a lot of the responsibility lies to keep yourself sane and healthy and feel full with energy, because you're a paragon, you're an example, you're the one who is going to set the mood and the spirit for everyone else in the company. And not only that, this ability to attract people, to channel energies in a certain direction, it only comes when you're comfortable with yourself, when you know how to manage yourself, when you're healthy. And this is was like a very important insight.
This is such an important sharing. I hope everybody's listening carefully to this one, especially you guys who are entrepreneurs, founders out there, and you listened for years for these kind of hustle culture stories. And I think Irina is going to agree with me that working hard and being consistent is a must do. But just because we are so committed, we're putting so much effort as entrepreneurs, we need to pay extra attention to recharge our energies. I was just speaking to you, Irina, before this podcast, that I was on the road for 4 or 5 months. I think I did 26 flights, like 58 workshops. Like I've been just crazy around doing all kind of things. And if you look at my pictures, it's like, whoa, these guys, lots of stuff is going on. But I was exhausted last week. I came back from my last trip, and it was nearly a week I couldn't get back on track. I mean, I'm very mindful, I called my team. I told them, guys, give me the minimum. If anything, you need me to give you feedback or something, I'm here for you. But I'm going to take it easy, and I'm just going to handle what is urgent, right? That customers, this and that. But
But it's
then,
actually very difficult, to allow yourself this kind of, okay, I need to step down now and, take a bit time for myself. I used to look at that in a very egoistic way and, feeling guilty also on top of that because everyone in the team is like hustling, they're doing their job. And I feel like, okay, my energy is at its low. Yeah. Um, and it was for me personally a fight to deal with this guilt and to say to myself, okay, you need now to take care of yourself. And here maybe like a big background story. I was when it comes to being how we're being raised and with kind of what kind of values. So I was an A student, yeah, at school. And I was always trying to be the best and in everything that I did. So in a way I could actually define myself as an imposter. Like I was having this classical imposter syndrome where I'm trying to impress everyone. And when you're at this kind of position, it's very difficult to step down and to tell yourself, okay, now I would not be at my best. And I would allow that. I would be actually comfortable with that. It was very, very difficult for me. And it still is. It is a constant struggle with myself.
yeah, thank you for sharing, because I'm sure that many people are following you and they're probably thinking, she's this invincible lady that's always confident and never doubts things.
Not at all, not at all. So I think one of my closest friends can actually also share about the moments where I am so much in self-doubt. And sometimes I would actually even call them and I would say, I have such an important meeting tomorrow, and I still feel like I'm you know like I'm nobody. So I need your support now. um, I think these are like normal moments in everyone's life, especially when the expectation you're putting yourself under is so high. Yeah.
This is another very important point, I think, and sometimes we paint this picture that there's these superhumans that never have fears, never have doubts, have it all perfect, have it all figured out. And you've been in this industry interviewing some of the most successful people. I'm honored and humbled through the book that we publish and through this podcast to talk to some of the most successful people, and it you can just see how many mistakes they're making, and uh, many years they haven't figured out. Many of them have a lot of failures on business projects, and even at the age of 40, 50, 60, they still have their doubts. They're still making big mistakes, uh, yet we kind of try to be perfect at all times, which is insane. It's
Well, I think perfectionism can actually kill a lot of, good things in life and a lot of success. I remember when I was doing my thesis at the university, I had to start the whole seminar like 3 times because I never finished it. And I never finished it because every time when I was, somewhere at the middle of my thesis, I would say, okay, this is just not good enough. I don't believe that anymore. It's not credible what I'm writing here. Who would actually buy this? And I finally succeeded on the third trial of a bachelor thesis. Yeah, because I kept saying this mantra in my head, which was, done is better than perfect. You just have to send it over, finish it, send it over, and you just want to finish your studies. You can't waste any more time on that. Just do it. And by the way, I sent it and I didn't expect it. That was my first excellent note in the whole, in my whole studies. And I was actually very impressed. So the moment where I tried to do the stuff not perfect, it was actually good enough for someone else. So that was the learning of my story, that my perfectionism can, make me waste a lot of time and energy on stuff that actually don't matter, that are just in your head. So yeah, done is better than perfect. That's it.
And since you share that you've always been an achiever type, and I'm just wondering, these perfectionistic traits, can you find the roots where it comes from? Was it like a teacher, or maybe like, if it's not too deep of a question, of course, but I think it would be interesting to, like, where is this coming from? I personally also had these perfectionistic traits, and at times when I'm really overwhelmed, they're coming back to me. I think I learned to let go, but when I was little, when I was growing up, post-communistic society, I grew up in a family of two teachers,
Mm,
and they always tried to give me this, and they were amazing. I mean, my parents are the most loving, amazing people ever, and they wanted to teach me how important it is to study, to work hard, and to do things flawlessly. But I kind of took it wrong to some extent, because I still remember my mom will come home and she'll give us some tasks to do, and she'll come and she'll say, "You missed the spot." Right.
mm,
And she probably wanted to say, "Hey, you gotta be amazing, you gotta do your best." But I took it in a different way. I took it in a way of, I'm not good enough, I missed the spot. Right. so,
yeah.
so I've been struggling with this. And in high school, now you can see I'm a professional speaker. I've spoken in more than 30 countries, but in high school I couldn't go in front of a crowd. I was afraid I would say something. I knew my lessons. I would study crazily good, but then I'll go in front of the class and I'll be like, uh, uh, like I don't know how. Like, it was this performance anxiety coming out of perfectionism. So in that sense, I was actually wondering if you can track your the rules.
Well, I would actually say that just like you, I'm like a classical case of that. So if I have to, say what are the roots, there are probably, many. I've been studying myself, and I've been, for instance, also in therapy for at least a year now without stopping, and I'm very confident sharing this, because I don't think that I'm kind of doing it because I'm crazy, but because I do want to become better and face myself and face my inner demons, to put it this way. So if I have to name, you know maybe the most important roots, first of all, yeah, definitely the maybe the zeitgeist that we grew up with. I would actually say that we're at a similar age. I think this is part of the post-communist, reality that we've been raised in. Everyone was actually, trying to be perfect, to have good studies, because if you want to succeed in life, you have to be like really, really good. And then I would say are my parents, who are a product also of this mindset, who are also A students at school, and they were always kind of, perfectionists. So I grew up with this kind of mindset. And then there is, this funny story where I remember my brother maybe not being that good at school at some point, and there were these discussions in my family, and I was just watching them. I wasn't at school at this point. I was very, very young, but I was looking at my brother, and then I would tell to myself, I don't want to be in this situation. I would never be like him. I want to be this good girl. And I imagined myself with this, I don't know how you call it, this thing on the decoration on the hair. um I imagined myself, to be this really, really paragon type of student at school. And I think this kind of stayed with me over time, even when it didn't make sense anymore. It just stayed with me as a belief that I don't want to be criticized. And for a very, very long time, I was having an issue of with being criticized, taking feedback, negative feedback, very, very personal, feeling like it means that I'm not good enough. Yeah, and this is also another struggle that I'm very proud of. That in this sense, I'm improving myself. I'm not, I didn't overcome it completely, but I'm improving, and it's a very conscious choice to move into a different direction.
And how do you deal with it these days? You guys are producing so much content, and where is for you the sweet spot between done is better than perfect, and the quality is really good, but then also letting go and not trying to make it perfect? How do you?
Uh, well, I wouldn't say that we've mastered that. So if my co-founder is now listening, he would say that, I'm this, Nazi who is going after the people, telling them, okay, this has to be, done in a better way. And he's more like the prototyping, type of person. So I would say that there is no sweet spot. It's all about the mix of people that you're having. You always need the optimizers, but you also need those who are, prototyping and who are creating stuff fast without thinking if they're perfect or not. And we kind of at some point realized that we're different in this sense, and we distributed the work in a different way, where I would, he would be more responsible for creating something from scratch, and then I will be going over it, and okay, this doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. And we also still have fights about it. Where is actually the sweet spot? um
Right,
yeah.
because there's you don't want to use this as an excuse not to have good quality, right? That's the opposite side. So but then again, at some point it is already amazing. Let it go. Let's go.
um so there is this joke that if we only have opinions and we don't have data, then let's go with mine. I think the way that you actually solve this kind of issue is when you start collecting data and you start collecting the feedback of those who matter, and usually these are the customers and your users. So it doesn't matter what he thinks or what I think. Let's see how the target audience is actually reacting.
Yeah, and talking about the customers and the community, actually, I want to get into some questions around
Mm.
the community. And I guess one of the ingredients for success in what you guys are doing is creating a engaged community around it. Could you maybe share with us some of the maybe the strategies, some of the things that you've guys done in order to get people to belong, to feel like they're part of the community of the recursive?
Well, I think first of all, what we have done strategically right, but it wasn't a conscious choice in the beginning, is that we put our personalities very much in the front. So people, first started relating to me and Etienne, and before that also our other partners. And here I would actually mention Alexandra, who was already part of the community and with whom we started, the whole project. And then all the others who actually joined, at some point we really started pushing them as people in the front. Um, and this is how you make a project a bit more relatable, I would say. Some other things that we tried is we, put our office in a co-working space. So in the beginning, we were actually moving from one co-working space to another every 3 months. And we were, trying to get to know the people in person. We were making some events for them. We were having like open hours for them so that they can share their story, and so on and so forth. So the physical presence was very decisive in the beginning. Later on, and especially now that we're expanding to the new markets, I would again say that networking is a critical part. Um, talking to just talking to people. um, but then again, I would say that it was like the right time for that. So I think by communicating again the mission and the purpose and why are we doing that, a lot of people identified with what we were trying to achieve and started supporting us. I mean, this is what I see. I remember some months ago, I was invited to a party in Bucharest by the La French Tech, And I was very surprised because they actually, awarded me with Female Entrepreneur of the Year. I didn't expect that at all. I was actually being late for the party, and they were already calling me like, "Are you coming? Because you're actually nominated, so you should be here." Anyways, so I actually got there and I received my award, and I was thinking, well, I mean, I do I really deserve it? I mean, what am I doing here? People actually don't know me. And then I got off the stage, and then at some point, people started coming at me and congratulating me for the award, and they actually already knew about the Recursive. And they were, "Hey, what you're doing is so important. You're having such a positive impact on the Romanian ecosystem." So I think it was exactly, again, the mission. And maybe also a third thing that I would like to mention. We have this in our elevator pitch, that we're community born. This is like a word that we basically invented. I would say that what makes us a bit different from other media is that we're not standing, somewhere on top of everything, observing and reporting about what is it, but we're engaging with the founders, talking about their challenges, taking their stories, and sometimes they're not told pretty. We actually help them tell their stories in a better way. Um, so we share this kind of startup mindset, and what comes on top of everything is that we are a startup ourselves, so we follow the same logic. We are currently productizing, although we are a classical service business so far, doing a beta, and getting all the feedback, and dealing with all the bugs, and then fundraising, and then so on and so forth. So it's actually like typical everyday life of a startup founder that we're experiencing. So this is the way that you actually relate to. You're just part of the reality of those you're reporting about.
And since there's many people actually listening to the podcast that they're having the founder slash entrepreneur title, I think one of the things that when you're describing these things comes to mind is you guys are playing the long term game. And if you want to build a great community around what you do, around your brand, it's putting up the mindset of playing the long term game,
Mm.
and trying to create value. Like, I don't know about you, Irina. I think you seem like to be a natural connector. I never realized I never realized in my life. I just love connecting people. I don't know. This is like a passion of mine. Like, people that are cool, I like to connect them. And I thought
Yeah.
everybody's just like that, right? And I've many times I've heard people saying, "Stoyan, you're so good in meeting people and connecting people." Yeah, but everybody's good at that. No, it's not. And then I realized how much value we actually create by finding two people or more than two people that have a similar interest and just connecting them. And this is part of the whole community building stuff. I don't want anything from this, you know, transaction.
Yeah,
I just want
exactly.
two cool people to create value in between each other. And this could be, of course, be scaled with, making some events and then inviting people, connecting them with each other, creating value in between them, which I think is a very important part of growing the community. And of course, people want to hang out because
Mm.
you just create a lot of value.
So, this networking is the one thing that I can do on and on, even if I'm not, getting money for it. And I always feel like, time doesn't matter when I'm doing it. So I'm also this type of person. I'm like I was born with that. I never really learned it. Um, so I'm not quite sure, and I was never like doing it because I have this, I want to create value in my mind. It's just because I'm fun. I just want to be helpful. You see two people, they can actually help each other. Well, let's connect them. I mean, it's actually good for everyone. The challenge here is that I don't know how to clone myself or digitize myself in doing that. So if there is someone in the audience who can actually help me with that, I don't want to sound egocentric at this point, but this is like a very important quality. And by the way, as a media, you are doing that. You are kind of in the middle of so many different stakeholder types. You're talking to the founders, you're talking to the VCs, you're talking to the policymakers, you're talking to the accelerators, even to academia, yeah? And you're trying, to connect the dots and make them acquainted with each other. I hope that in the future we will find more even various ways to do that, not only through, creating content about them. This was actually one of the goals of our new project, which is called Growth Club. Trying to connect the dots in the different stakeholder types of the ecosystem. So
I want to stop you
yeah,
for a second because you just
yeah,
Growth Club and then you move on. But I want you to tell me a little bit more about it.
yeah.
What is the Growth Club? Who should be interested to join? What is the whole purpose of this project?
So I think when it can be also read from the title that we're trying here to promote the growth and also growth mindset in the ecosystem. So one of the purposes of the Growth Club now in the beginning is to map the different founders, but also the VCs and all the stakeholder types that I mentioned, which are part of an innovation ecosystem. We want to have them on the platform with their own profile, with their own description, who are they, and once we have this data also in a structured way, it's much easier for us, to find ways how to make the connections between them. We started prototyping, for instance, connecting founders who are currently fundraising to investors. We also started with connecting founders to journalists, because I would say that PR is very important for a young company in the beginning, and we can help them tell their story to the world, but also to local media. So there is this kind of PR dissemination service which is in the Growth Club, and then from there I would say we will see. I mean, another huge topic is of course talent, that we have identified like one of the major stoppers for growth at this point. So it would be interesting to find also ways how we can connect talent to product companies, but this will come with time. So in the beginning, we just want everyone, to jump in, to join in, to make their own profile and help us, build on that with additional services.
So everybody who's listening right now to the podcast, make sure to check out the recursive.com and look for the Growth Club, one of the many cool things that these guys are doing. It might be something for you. And talking about community, actually, uh, I think everybody listening needs to really pay attention to this and to think of how do I build a community around what we do. And I want to give you an example. Some years ago, I was a co-founder and a producer in a video production company in Denmark called Level Up Pictures. The main thing we were doing is video production, videos for businesses. However, because we had this similar mindset that Irina is also describing now, we started doing these level up events, right? Where we invite the speaker and we'll invite people to come for free and just listen to a speaker. We'll do some masterminding, networking, bringing people together. There was a point that people had no idea what we do because it was all about creating value. And we actually got feedback. We love you guys, but we don't know what you do. You got to talk about it more. Because now, like everybody knows this level up thing, but they don't know what you actually. Okay, good point. Maybe we need to mention that we actually do videos, but we built such a great brand in the city we are in. Everybody knew us,
Mm,
and everybody was like, "Oh, this is the level up guys. They're amazing. What do they?
yeah.
I don't know what they do, but they're really cool." So
Yes,
of course, it'd be good to mention, if you. But the thing is, what can you do? Me and Irina, we are natural networkers, right? Like, so we can use this our strength. But what is your strength? Maybe your strength is something else. How can you utilize your strength to build community around the things that you do, around the purpose of what you do? You recently had an article, Irina, with Lubomila Yordonova from Plan A, right? I mean, she's so amazing. She's actually going to be on the podcast in January. She's so amazing
very cool.
in
Hmm.
in not talking about. I never heard her talking directly, this is the product of what we do. No, she talks about the purpose. She's creating this community of people who are excited about solving the same problem, and she's exceptional about it. She's inspiring. She's bringing people together, but she's not coming by stuff from me. She's not selling stuff. She's just talking about the bigger picture. And of course, a lot of people come and they're like, "We want to work with you," which is a byproduct of this. So, you know, just
Well,
wanted to.
I think it's already probably a cliche, but this book by Simon Sinek, where you start with the why, I think this is what attracts people around you, and it's not only the community. It's also the employees and your partners. It's also your investors. It's also all those customers who might be even there for the product. But I think if you have like an authentic why, you would operate on a totally different scale. So this is one of the responsibilities also of the leader in the organization, to know how to communicate this why, this vision. This is like your main responsibility. It's nothing else, and to attract those bright minds around you who can help you achieve this kind of goal.
We had one of the people we interviewed for our book perform the unsexy truth about startup success, which I was really happy to give you a signed copy a few
It
months
was
ago.
actually, I mean, I actually didn't mention it. I'm still, working on a recension of, of the book, but I think what you managed to do, I think it's actually a very great work, because we started with this hype around, what is it to be like a startup founder. And I think maybe, those who are now at the beginning, they need to have a certain level of optimism, but I think a bit of realism in this optimism would be very useful to many, to understand that it's not a shorter game. It's not going to make you rich. There is a lot of grit that you need and persistence on the way, so that you can go through all the roller coaster highs and lows of being a startup founder. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that on
Thank you so much.
the side.
That's why, but that's right. The importance of consistency, focusing on the fundamentals that are not always sexy. That's one point. But actually, what I want to mention is one of the founders we interviewed, which you might want to get in touch, is Katie Rosalep, who's the
Okay.
founder CEO of Funderbeam, this
Mm-hmm.
funding platform, and she's an amazing founder. But she shared this kind of a reminder. I think other people probably shared it as well, but she was really emphasizing on the fact that as a founder, as a CEO, you are the chief motivating officer every single day. The team is a little down, numbers are not adding up, right? You got to show up and you got to be the person. Hey guys, everything is fine. It's part of the journey. Let's pick ourselves up and let's focus on solving this, right? You're the chief motivating officer. You don't have the luxury to show up and be the victim and say, I don't know what we do. No, you might have a really bad day, but you take the ownership. You're the leader, right? You mentioned, Irina, something really important. If you don't lead by example, how do you expect people to do the work if you're not living it? Another person we mentioned in the book, another exceptional person, he was on the podcast, Kai Shukolsky. He's the youngest appointed GM, general manager of Kempinski Hotels in the history of Kempinski Hotels. Exceptional guy. They won multiple awards for hospitality, for team spirit, and so on. And he was like, if I'm not the person that shows up and washes dishes and cleans the room when we are most stressed, how do I expect my people to be out there? Of course, I don't care. I'm a general manager. I go out and I wash dishes. I go out and I clean the rooms, right?
I
Like
tot
you got to lead by example.
Yes, I totally agree here with you. And I would like, I sign it 100%. And I would share also maybe something that I've been doing. So there are days where you're still like not on the top of your game, when you're not feeling like the leader who can lead by example. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that publicly, but these are some days where I actually prefer to stay at home, because I know that if I appear, in front of my colleagues in this mood, this will, affect them too. And I cannot expect them, to lift me up. Sometimes it works, talking also to your co-founder, but you can't do that in front of the team. You are definitely responsible for that. And when you're not feeling like that, okay, do something for yourself, manage yourself. You know how, you are, filling the glass of your energy cup. Do something which, make yourself a nice meal or go on a walk. I don't know, go to the beach, whatever, you know, makes you feel good. And then come back when you're, already at your high again.
Tell us your secrets, Irina. How do you refill the cup? What do you do when you feel like I'm a little bit off track or more, and I need to regain this energy?
Well, I think one of the things that I started doing is being a bit more selective of who am I surrounding myself with in my, spare time. You know, selecting my friends and actually those who are good, for me in a way. Because before that, I was like this networker and I would try, to keep all these connections. Now I do that a bit less. So that's again like an honest answer by myself. um, what else do I do? Um, I try to, keep myself fit in a different way. I would meditate. I would do my yoga. I would go to the fitness. I would swim. I'm not a person of habit. I'm really bad at, developing healthy habits. So I like diversity. And yeah, it actually, when it comes to sport, I don't do one thing, but I try to do different things. um, this is the one thing, and the second thing which I developed, or I explored just recently. um, I had my first ayahuasca session like a month ago, and this is like my new passion. So I'm kind of, looking forward to the next opportunity to do that, because that was the time where I really switched off in a very, very high quality way. Before that, was once even in India doing like a retreat, like a Ayurveda retreat, panchakarma cleansing type of thing. So I try to give myself this, off times where I'm cleansing my body and my mind, and I know that they're connected. And I'm kind of super open to this kind of, alternative medicine type of things and spirituality. Yeah, spiritual pathways.
Since you mentioned it, I couldn't not to ask you, what was something that came out of this experience that you haven't expected? Like, was there any sort of a, reimagining the way I see the world kind of experience, or like I can see things more clear when I came back?
Well, there is a lot that can be said about ayahuasca, of course. I think it works on various levels. So it's not only the physical level, it's the emotional level, it's also the spiritual level. And a lot of happens without even you noticing it consciously. But something that I didn't expect was the amount of self-acceptance and self-love that I actually had after that. That was, yeah, that was actually amazing.
I love it. Thank you, Irina, for sharing and for being open. Many people do not like to talk about these type of experiences. I recently met the CEO of Wolf Summit, Mike, and he shared that he uses some sort of mushrooms, sometimes in a very right dose, as he says, to unplug and to just to stress relieve. Together with his wife, they just go to the mountain and then just have this experience, and in a very kind of a modest dosation, whatever. And he says it really works for him.
Hmm. Well, I think psychedelics are now having a revival, and we're going to change our ways, or the way that we actually look at them completely, because I wouldn't put them in the pot of like, okay, drugs like everything else. especially when done right. I don't know, when it comes to the dosage, or in my case, in the presence of a shaman. And you ask, the role of the shaman is actually critical. I wouldn't, take the whole thing, like alone at home. I wouldn't take anything. So, the presence of a spiritual leader in this sense is very important. And I think it's also, changing the way they actually, experience this type of things. We need an educated view of how we can, use psychedelics for the purposes of exactly, growth, internal, personal, emotional, spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it. Meeting with your demons, making friends with them, accepting yourself. It is, a pathway that works for certain people. For the others, it doesn't. But let's not, demonize them, or you know leave this be a taboo for that long. I'm kind of a bit open-minded about it.
That's very interesting. I've never actually been um, exposed to the knowledge and the facts and these kind of things, but it's interesting to definitely explore these kind of things. But Irina, since the time is going up, I have one
Yes.
final question I want to ask you. Even though you might agree or disagree, I find you as a very productive person, and I'm curious, how do you prioritize and manage your time, as you have to lead a team and you have to lead yourself? How much time do you spend on?
I'm terrible at that. I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you. I mean, I look at myself and I'm terrible at that. Sometimes I would wake up in the morning and I have this mountain of work. And just by looking at it, I'm already wasting my time and energy. And I'm feeling, I don't know where to even to start. And then, procrastinate for, I don't know, like an hour, not knowing where to start. Um, I think the only thing that I found that works for me is to find ways to calm down the anxiety. Like, okay, meditate, sort it out in your head, and then just start doing it, task by task, little by little, and then you progress. And then look back and be proud of the progress that you actually made, because this is what is going to charge you. So, for me, it's a question of managing anxiety. That's it. And as we know, meditation helps, and there are a lot of things that actually help with that. So um, I think I don't have like a universal um, tip here. Books didn't help me much, because I mean, what they basically say to you, yeah, you have to prioritize, and this is like an algorithm where you can do that, but it doesn't solve the emotional thing, the emotional problem with it. And the emotional problem with it is that you never switch off. You're afraid that maybe you will not manage, that you will fail, that you're not good enough, and these are things that you cannot tackle with a book. So I'm not going to quote any author here. Just, yeah.
Please don't. Thank you, Irina, for being so honest and open with this question, but during the whole interview. For those of you who might be struggling in having this overwhelm of tasks, what helps me and what could be helpful sometimes is simply to get things out of your head, put them on a piece of paper, just write them down, everything you need to do, and anxiety is already lowering down. And now you can say, okay, what's the first thing I should do? Let me focus my attention on only one thing. Everything else is on the list. I'll get to it. Right now, I'm fully here with Irina, and I'm doing this podcast. And I have 37 other things to do afterwards. But they're in my notebook, they're in my list right now.
And although I'm in media, here I would say use via social media, very wisely. Don't let all these, notifications distract you, because this is what's, actually affecting our productivity, I think, the most at this point. Yeah. All the
Absolutely.
distractions that we allow on our devices. I don't know. Yeah.
Except the notifications from the Recursive and Productivity Mastery podcast. Just turn off everything else.
Oh, I'm
That's kind of
actually quite fine if people, read us once a day. Just, open it whenever you feel like, okay, now I can, take the news. You don't need to, be online all the time just because of us. So don't. We from the Recursive, we don't expect that from you.
I love it. I love it. Irina, final words. Where could people find you guys? What is cooking in the kitchen of the Recursive these days? And final words.
Well, I think you mentioned all the links that are, must be visited. It's the recursive.com, the Growth Club. You can also find there. You can ping me also directly. Best thing is probably LinkedIn at this point. This is, the social media that I'm actually paying attention to. Everything else is a bit of a distraction for me. So just find me there, give me a note, and we can also have a talk at some point. I would be happy to. Yeah, as you said, networker.
This is for networker, thinker. I'm sure she'll connect you with somebody cool. So thank you so much for everybody listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to share with a friend, send to somebody who might need a bit of inspiration. And since this is episode 86, there's 85 more episodes, and we're gonna keep on producing more or less on a weekly basis. Lots of amazing guests like Irina today. So thank you so much for being with us and listening, and see you again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery.
I thank you for inviting me.
Great having you, Irina.